Hey everyone, so today I'm taking a closer look at the Pins and Boxes plugin for Adobe After Effects. Now this is a really great tool that's going to allow you to create dynamic and complex layouts. So now what do I mean by that? Let's say you're working with a bunch of elements in your project. This plugin is going to allow you to connect those elements and rig it up so that if you're making scale or position adjustments to one particular element, everything else will adjust accordingly. For this particular example, I'm going to be creating a lower third, and so I want to make it responsive using this tool so that if we change the size of one text element, the other text element will adjust. And I'm also going to create a background that's going to automatically resize. We'll have total control over all of that. The cool thing is I just need to rig this up once and I'll be able to reuse this. And I'm actually going to be creating a Mogart template for use in Adobe Premiere Pro. And I'm going to make that available as a free download, so just follow the link in the video description if you want to pick that up. Also, if you want to check out more about pins and boxes, just follow my affiliate link in the video description. You can watch the product trailer over on A&E Scripts, and there's a bunch of additional tutorials. All right, let's get into the project. So I have the plugin installed, I have my After Effects project open, and the first step I'm going to do is create a text element. So I'm going to grab the text tool and click right in my comp here and just type in first name. And this is going to be my main element. And down here I have these three panels open that are going to help me. I have character, align, and paragraph panels. If you can't see those, just go to the window menu and then you can activate them from this menu. So I'm going to change the size here in the character panel to 100, and you can see the font that I'm using here. And I can align this if I want. It's not really, doesn't really matter. All right, so I have this element, and now I want to create a second text element. So I'm going to simply duplicate this and then bring it down. And I'm going to put this in the lower right-hand corner. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this lower right. And I'm going to change the size of this one. Well, first I'm going to go to paragraph. I'm going to right align this. And then what I want to do with this one is I want it to be in the bottom right. I don't want it to be perfectly aligned with this one. First I'm going to lower the size of it to 35. And now I'm just going to kind of loosely rough it in. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap here. I don't want it to be perfectly aligned. Okay, so now this is the most basic of graphics here, so I could use this. Now the problem is, if I was just duplicating this and retyping in new names, watch what happens. Everything's gonna kind of get out of whack here. So if I just type in a name, so I'll type in my name, we already have a difference in the position here, the size of this gap here. Let's say we want to keep this equidistant for each one. Right now, I would have to manually reposition this and it would never be perfect, and I'd have to do that step each time. And another issue is if I want to resize this lower graphic, let's say I want to make it a little bit bigger, then that's going to start to overlap, and I'm going to have to reposition it like this. So it's kind of a pain, so I'm going to undo this. So that's where these pins and boxes really come in. So I want to rig this up to have everything be responsive. So over here I have my pins and boxes panel. You can see the tools here. The first thing I want to do is add some pins. So I'm going to grab my main graphic here, and I'm just going to hit the pins button. And that's going to add 6 pins. Now what this is doing is creating these shape layers here. You can see them down here in the timeline, and you can see them on the comp panel here. Now what these are essentially attached via expressions to this graphic, and we'll call the graphic, this is the mother layer. So it's attaching to this mother layer, and as the mother layer moves, it's going to stay in that specific spot on the mother layer. So watch what happens if I type in a new name. You're going to watch how they dynamically move. So the cool thing about this is that I can parent elements to these particular pins, so that it will essentially attach elements to that position and move them dynamically. Once again, these are being attached to the mother layer via expressions. They're not parented, but what we're going to be doing is parenting elements to these pins. So try not to get too confused here. Now these are labeled based on their position, so it makes them easily identifiable. We can see top left, top right, bottom. So what I want to do is I'm going to take this lower right one. Well, first I'm going to undo the text here because I want this to be positioned directly here. Now what I want this to do is attach to this bottom pin. So I'm going to simply go down to the lower right text. I'm going to grab my pick whip and I'm going to pick whip this to the bottom right. And now we can see that's parented. Now let me retype my name here. So as I type my name now, you can see that this is staying pinned to that specific location. And you can even see if I move this around, stays attached. Now let's look at this subtitle down here. Let's say I want to change the size of this. I'm going to go to the character panel, and I'm going to start to bring that up, and you're going to see it starts to overlap, and we don't want that. So one way we can avoid this is to reposition this anchor point. Now I can manually reposition it using the pan behind tool here, but the pins and boxes panel has anchor point tools. So with the layer selected, I'm going to hit this A button, and that's going to add a new anchor point, and it actually repositions it. So I'm going to open up the effect controls panel, and now I can see my anchor point controls. So what I want to do here is change the location of this. So I want this anchor point to be in the top right. So for that, I need to just move my X location over to 100%, and now it is there. And I'm actually going to have to reposition this now. So that's why you do this all up front, because once I rig it, then it's all good, and then I can create the template. But if I were to change this after I already have, you know, a ton of lower thirds created, could be a bit of a catastrophe. Okay, so now I'm going to position this here, and now you're going to see if I change the size now, it's going to stay right where I want it. It's not going to overlap. And now if I even change the size of this one, it's going to go and everything's going to respond accordingly. Very cool. Okay, now I want to add some backgrounds. So for this, I'm going to first add backgrounds to this main graphic. So for this, I select all of my pins. I'm going to go back to pins and boxes panel, and I'm going to hit box. And that's going to add this rectangular shape layer. I can see it down here, this box shape. Now, this is a simple shape layer. I'm going to turn the stroke off, and I'm going to change the color. Let's make like a blue color or something. And now I'm going to move it down below my text. So here I have it. Now I'm going to go back to Effect Controls panel to look at all the different attributes and parameters I have here. So I have my margins. So let's bump up the margins here. Let's add like a 15 pixel margin to bottom and top, and then 25 to the sides. Now I want to do the same thing for my subtitle. So first I need to add pins to this one. So I'm going to go and add pins and boxes to this. Okay, so with those selected, I'm going to create a box, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn the stroke off. I'm going to set the color, the same blue color. And now I'm going to bring this box way down below my graphic here. And let's zoom in. And now I just want to bump up the margins on this as well. So we'll do something a little bit smaller for this one. Let's do 10 top and bottom, and 15 on right and left, and just see how that looks. Okay, that's looking good. Now I want to get rid of these pins, because if I just rendered this out right now, we would see these pins on screen. That's no good. So I have a visibility button right here in the panel. There's this I button, so I can toggle the visibility of those off and on. Also, I have, you know, it gets pretty cluttered in here on the timeline once you start adding all these pins. So to quickly remove all those, if you notice, all the shy layers, all the shy buttons are activated for these layers automatically. So all I need to do is hit this master shy layer, and those will all go away. So now I have my dynamic lower third set up. If I change the name to first name, you're going to see it, you know, automatically adjust. If I change the size, the background follows, the lower subtitle graphic follows. And if I change the size here, once again, everything's looking good. Now let's do a quick animation for these backgrounds. Let's say I want to have it animate on. So I'll grab this box here. I'll open up Effect Controls panel, and I have scale, anchor, and offset controls here. So if I go down to scale, it goes from 0 to 100. My anchor here, 0 to 100. So let's see what happens. I'm going to animate the scale, the X scale of this. So I want it to animate on like this, but I want it to animate on from left to right. So what I need to do is move my X anchor all the way to the left to 0%. And now I can quickly add some keyframes to this. We're going to go from 0 to 100. So we'll go 0. And we want it to animate on, let's see, 20 frames. Okay. 0 to 100. All right. And now I can quickly add just some easing on there so that it shoots on. There we go. And I want my lower subtitle graphic to do a vertical animation, so I'm going to grab the box of this one and we'll set the anchor and scale. So let's have this one animate on a little bit after this one comes on. We'll start right here. So we're going to add a Y keyframe here, and it'll go 0 to 100. Let's change that one back to 0. 100. Now the problem is it's animating from the center here. We want it to animate from the top down. So I'm going to adjust the anchor Y position, and it'll come, we'll set that to 0% as well. And now I'm going to grab these keyframes and add some easy ease with the F9 key and my graph editor here. Boom. Okay, so now these will animate on, and let me see if I can actually just do it. And time it so they arrive at the same time. That's looking good. So now I want these to actually reveal the text. So that's simple enough. I can just duplicate them. So I'm going to duplicate this one, bring it above my text. I'm going to rename it matte. I'm going to toggle my switches here. I'm going to grab the text graphic, and I want to set my track matte to alpha matte. Matte. And now, voila. Now, one other quick little tip is to give myself better control over this. If you notice, I just duplicated this layer, so now there's two sets of keyframes, and I don't want that, because if I make adjustments to these keyframes down here, it won't make changes to this one. So to avoid that, I'm just going to delete these keyframes up here, and then I'm going to pick whip this X scale to this one. So now any adjustments I make to this one, the matte will follow. And now I can just do the same thing down here on my subtitle. Duplicate the background layer, bring it above my text, set the track matte to alpha matte. I'm going to rename this layer matte. I'm going to hit the U key to bring up the keyframes. I'm going to delete these keyframes. And now I'm going to parent it to the original background layer keyframes. Voila. I know I kind of went through that fast, but... And the last thing I want to do is, let's see here. I want to hit the U key to bring up all the keyframes, and now I'm going to animate these out. So copy. Let's say we want this animation to go for like 5 seconds. So I'm going to hit the N key and then trim this. And now I'm going to paste these keyframes, right click, keyframe assistant, time reverse. And what I'm doing here is I'm having them animate out. Copy paste, time reverse. Okay. And now I'm actually going to create a Mogurt out of these. So I want to have these not only do all this responsive design, but I want them to have responsive design for time as well. So to do that, I'm going to go up to composition and select responsive design time, and here I can do intros and outros. So I'm going to click on intro, and it adds this little area here, which essentially means it's going to freeze this section. So once it's a Mogurt template inside of Premiere Pro, if I trim those in and out points, these animations are going to stick to those in and out points. So it's kind of necessary. Like if you don't have that, it's really, really annoying. Okay, and I just need to make sure that those keyframes are in that protected region, which they are. Okay, I'm going to save my project. Okay, now this is looking good. I've got the animation in, I've got the animation out. Now I want to create a Mogurt template. So to do that, I'm going to go to Window, Essential Graphics, and I'm going to name this, we'll call it Boone Responsive Lower Third, because because I'm very narcissistic. And now I need to select the properties that I want to be able to edit. So naturally, I want to edit the text elements. So I'm going to throw in the source text. We'll call this main title. I want to make the properties editable. Just add all these. These are fine. And then I'm going to grab the lower text or the subtitle text. Throw that in there. And I'll just call that the subtitle. Okay, and I also want to be able to control the colors. So to do that, I know that the shape layers already have colors, but to make it easier, I'm just going to go to the Effects and Presets panel here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go search the fill attribute, and I'm going to add a fill to the background. And then simply bring that open. Let's see here. Where's that fill? Here it is. And I'm going to set the color back because it automatically goes to red. And now I grab this color attribute, and this is for my main title. So now I'm going to throw that in there. And I'll just do main title color. And now I can copy the fill and paste it on my lower background. And now I'll go to that fill, grab the color property. And the reason I did that is because it's just easier to grab these properties than working with the shape layers. Subtitle color. Last thing I want to do is set like my poster time so that when in the thumbnail of the Mogurt template we can see what's what. There we go. Now this should be ready to go. I'm going to export this. Got to save the project first. I'm going to add some quick keywords. Boone, responsive, lower third, maybe even another lower third. Okay, now I'm going to go over to Adobe Premiere Pro. I'm going to go to Window, Essential Graphics. And what I want to do now is go grab my Mogurt template. I have it right here. And to bring this in, I can click on this little button over here in Premiere Pro, or I can just simply drag and drop. And now once this is added, I can simply do a search via those keywords that I entered. Responsive lower third, hit enter. Here it is. Wow, it's not very centered up, it looks like. Okay, now I'm gonna drag and drop, see how it looks. Okay, so once I click on it and I go to the edit tab of Essential Graphics, you can see all the controls here. And if I play it back, okay, the animation's looking good. Now let's see if this works, and we'll dynamically change. I'm going to type in my name, and I'm going to type in my job title, and let's see what happens if I increase the size here. That's looking good. If I increase the size of my main title, that's looking good. Maybe if I change the font here, that's adapting, condensed. Doesn't look good, but it's working. Even if I change the font, those backgrounds should follow. And even now I can scale this down and I can position this right where I want it. And like I said, if I created this and automatically put it in the lower third, and I knew what resolution my users are going to be using, you know, that's another way you can go about it. Last thing I want to test out is the responsive design for time. So if I trim my endpoint here, we'll see if the animation in is still on there. It is. And if I trim the out point, let's see if it animates out. All right, so there it is, a responsive lower third, not too fancy, but everything's rigged up the way we want it, and I'm gonna be able to reuse this a bunch, resize everything, and I won't have to you know, put a whole lot of work into it. One other thing I could have done is put my anchor point at the bottom of this, because I think the anchor point of my main graphic, if I go back and look, I think the anchor point is, yeah, my anchor point's up here. So let's say what I could have done, or what I should have done, is put the anchor point down here so that this scales up and it stays aligned, because right now the way this is set up, the problem now is if I keep scaling this up, it's just going to push it off of, you know, out of frame. Whereas if the anchor point was here, it would kind of just scale up this way. So, you know, make sure you do your rigs correctly. Okay, so there you have it. That's pins and boxes for Adobe After Effects. Really fun, really great tool. It's probably one of my favorite plugins that I use the most because I like to create these Mogurt templates for Premiere Pro. So if you'd like to check out more, just follow my affiliate link in the video description. You can watch the product trailer, and there's a bunch of additional tutorials from the creator. And if you like the tutorial, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to see more content like this, just hit that notification bell. You'll be notified. And that's it for today, so I'll see you in the next one.